Hi, I'm Nedret Andre. Welcome to my studio here in the South End. I'm on the second floor, Studio 224, and we're going to have a little tour of what's happening behind the scenes for my upcoming show and what's happening in the studio. So my work is inspired by seagrass habitats. For the last 6 years, I've been working solely on this concept of being able to portray eelgrass in different ways to communicate the sacredness of the ecosystem that we have. So that's my overarching goal with my paintings. I try to capture sometimes the mood, sometimes it's the flickering light of when we go out to do seagrass conservation. So that happened. A lot of people ask me, how did that happen? And what is seagrass? Seagrass is a flowering plant. We have eelgrass in Massachusetts. It's been around it's one of the oldest ancient plants they have. I think in Spain they found it 200 million years ago. Plant. It's a beautiful plant and it's home to thousands of sea creatures, including turtles. And I got inspired by this secondhand used bookshop book that I found in Cambridge, and I picked it up because it had a turtle and I like turtles. So that's how it began, I think 6 years ago now. And then I ended up interviewing Fred Short, who wrote this book, co-authored this book. And if you look inside, there's lots of statistics and graphs and information and dead fish pictures and different types of 70 different types of seagrass around the world, and it basically tells the story of how we're losing 2 football fields every hour globally. There's a big habitat loss, and this book was already 10 years old, so this is a continuing fascination for me. And since meeting with Fred Short, I've gone on to work with volunteer with different groups for seagrass conservation, including BU, Northeastern. I've even gone to Nova Scotia and down to Virginia, where they do big restorations with eelgrass. So my work kind of, in my organic way, tries to express the beauty in seagrass beds. Sometimes we're inside, like this painting, we're kind of inside the water, and sometimes we're above, like this is more aerial. So I kind of move between different perspectives, not consciously, I kind of do it unconsciously. So sometimes it's the surface of the water, and sometimes we're in the water and there's something I'm exploring. For my earlier pieces, I was concentrating more on how seagrass provides resources, shelter for fish, for mussels. I was actually, if we look over there, I have oyster beds and how they have a symbiotic relationship. So I'll be learning about something and then I'd be just painting oyster beds without even thinking that they were oyster beds. So my process is very gestural. I start working just with color, and I don't necessarily dictate this is what's going to happen. I just let the color happen. So if you look behind you, there's a painting right there, which is the very early stages, where I just use washes of color and just allow the movement to form, and then I come back and rework it. So I'm very much a process painter, inspired by seagrass habitats. In this new group of works that I'm doing, I'm actually taking a look a little bit at history. In this one, Sustaining Life it's called, we have an old map, 1975 map, kind of poking through in the background, and big blades of seagrass that are moving and overlapping transparent layers. I was very interested, and I am very interested in thinking about how my studio in the South End here was all kind of oceanfront. So look in that time, if you look, I'm going to mark where we are in the South End. This was all ocean, and the seagrass was right here. So I think it's kind of fascinating to think about our relationship, our human relationship to the man-made and the natural environment. So, and how our actions impact the future. So this is very much pressing right now in my whole scheme of things. Like, we can make Boston Harbor dirty, like in the 80s when it got brown and you couldn't swim anywhere, or we can clean them up and move waste systems way out 9 miles out, and now the seagrass is coming back. There's this whole connection between how our actions affect our environment and our health. And I think it's a beautiful way to think about kind of the future and having a healthy future. Because the health of the seagrass beds are indications of the health of ourselves on land. It helps shelter, it helps storm surges, it helps filter things, and it gives us oxygen. It's an amazing plant. So this one, I have the blades kind of overlapping the bigger map. So now it's obviously landfill. Boston's changed a lot since 1775, but some of the things that are still kind of important is this relationship between how are we going to make a better future? That's the big question and how do we show the beauty of the nature that we do have so we can protect it? So those are the main questions I'm kind of always asking myself and trying to come up with answers. I've had the wonderful opportunity of working and collaborating with different ecologists in the Boston area. Boston EPA Phil Colarusso, sorry, I'm mixing the names. Phil Colarusso has graciously given me so much ample time. I think I'm going to do that again.
Yes. No problem.
You told me I'm doing a good job. You should be telling me I'm doing a good job.
My bad.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Go.
So, yes, I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing ecologists in the Boston area and around. Alyssa Novak actually was one of my first people that I followed around and helped with. She has worked with the aquarium. She's from BU. She has a lab at BU called the Novak Lab. And I've been on probably 7 or 8 trips with them out to the North Shore, where we do groups of young people from the city come out actually to help plant and harvest seagrass, and it's a wonderful experience. I've got some of the footage on my website, and I have made a little movie too called For the Love of Seagrass if you're interested. I have pictures of them out, everyone kind of working, counting crabs, whatever it is. So BU has a group associated with the aquarium. There's groups in Lynn through Northeastern and the center up there. So I know they do restoration things in the summer and kind of like research. I've been out with Phil Colarusso on their boats from the EPA. They've been monitoring eelgrass for 30 years. So they've been testing the water and looking at how much carbon the seagrass can hold down. So one of the big features of eelgrass or seagrass is that it can actually hold carbon dioxide in its root system. It's an amazing plant. The benefits of eelgrass beds apparently outweigh, I'm not a scientist, but they way outweigh trees. I'm not saying get rid of trees, but we need to be kind of restoring hectares of seagrass a lot more. What else? There's groups. There's a whole bunch of groups. I've been very lucky. In Gloucester, Tay Evans from the Fisheries Department, I've gone to see how she collects seeds to replant. Bunch of stuff. So if you're interested, send me an email, nedretandre@gmail.com, and I can send you a list of places that I've been involved with. They're always looking for volunteers outside of COVID time. This year's have been a little bit slow for project work for most scientists in the field work. So, but that's why I started looking inward and trying to figure out what's the most important thing that we could be thinking about with our environment, and I think it has to do with our government. This group of new work isn't quite as political as Lorenzetti's work. So I love Ambrosio Lorenzetti, probably messing up his name here. Ambrosio Lorenzetti, he's a 13th century, 14th century painter of frescoes in sienna, and I love the Sienese colors. I just seen the frescoes, small frescoes in England, just fell in love with them. And this group of paintings behind me are all inspired by Lorenzetti's work. So the next show that I'll be having is at Beacon Gallery. In November, I'll be presenting finished versions of these paintings in November. So the first Friday, we'll be doing a small opening, first Friday in November. And you're all welcome to come. Beacon Gallery is down on Harrison Avenue. We'd be happy if you just pop in and have a look. So it's called City by the Sea, and I thought this name that I pulled from Lorenzetti's work, I kind of borrowed it. This is his City by the Sea, and I loved how his tiny little painting kind of captures this kind of isolated, almost like abandoned feel in here, because while I was coming up with these ideas and doing studies, we were in COVID-19. So I felt like the whole of Boston and Massachusetts kind of felt like this to me. So it just seemed like the right thing to do. So I got a bunch of books and started doing more studies, and I made my own interpretation of City by the Sea here. Lorenzetti's City by the Sea could be a lake, because they don't really have a city by, they don't have a sea by Tuscany, so some historians believe that might be a lake, but that's okay. So I kind of deconstructed his interpretation of his and put mine into an eelgrass bed. So my City by the Sea is within the water, and it's in this eelgrass bed. So you can see kind of staircases and maybe little boats, but it's kind of underwater. So I started with that, and this, so Lorenzetti, I did want to talk about a little bit about this awesome thing that I found. Most of you probably already know, but I didn't know there was this place called Plaza Publico, which is right here. So Lorenzetti was commissioned to do this big fresco of 3 huge paintings in this huge room, where people from the town would come and basically run the town, or city, the city of Siena. It was townspeople. They were called the Nine. There were 9 magistrates. And he was commissioned to do this amazing fresco that showed what the city would look like under good government, what it would look like under bad government, and and there's one that just kind of extends out, it's a bit more neutral landscape in it. But I thought this is amazing, because we need this. We need reminders of what's going to happen if we have good government, which is what we need. We need people to keep the environmental laws and protections in place, so we have clean water, we have clean air, CO2 levels are off the roof. I don't know if you've been following them, but anyway, so I'm like, this is very interesting. How could I take this idea of under good government? Well, first I did this painting, so I borrowed colors from, I don't have my little study here, but I borrowed some, I do little studies like this and borrow some of the colors to create this kind of swimming seagrass thing. So under good government, there's going to be plenty of seagrass, because we replanted it. Also in the future, under good government, I have this painting. So again, I don't know until I've kind of finished and stepped back, and it's basically a city that's been deconstructed, and under good government, we would be able to adapt. So it's called adaptation. We're going to be able to adapt to waters rising. It's not kind of like doomsday. If we have good government now, I think the future's going to be like, we're going to be able to be mobile and move and live in different hubs. And use the sea in a different way. So this is my kind of imaginary, hopeful future for good government. What else? Some of them are more kind of poetic. This is from the dances. There's these dances that I love in Lorenzetti's Good Government. That just, so in his fresco, he has these, people getting along, the community being together. I just, it resonated about people coming together and wanting to have change that was good. So, and mine obviously floating will things. My dancers are not humanoids as much, but that's my interpretation of the dancers. This is a healthy mollusks. So there's healthy oysters and different shelled animals, and they're all thriving because the water's clean and they have enough oxygen, nitrates circulating around. So that's one of them. I'm not sure exactly what the title of this one is, but and sometimes I'm just not sure. So these are all kind of connected, but I don't have titles yet. So come to the show. Hopefully they'll have titles. This is called When the Fog Rolls In. It's from an experience I had with Alyssa Novak. We went to Wealthy to do eelgrass harvesting. That just means that you gently pull the eelgrass out from its roots and then you replant them immediately the next day. And there was a group of us. There was like maybe 8 people in Wellfleet, and I think it might have been early like September. And we went out. I was in the water. I went one direction. Everyone's going in different directions, and all of a sudden, the mist got thicker and thicker. It became foggy, and all of a sudden, it was like I was faced with this wall of fog, and me being a city person, I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna drown. So anyway, I'm like, think. So all of a sudden, all these different senses start popping up. I didn't even know. I'm like, oh, walk towards the beach. Common sense. So I walked towards the beach and I was like, oh, I'm safe. I'm not gonna drown. But it's this amazing sensational variation that kind of put me in this mindset of like, oh my God. And then I was fine. And then I looked down and it was like magic. It was like the seagrass was glowing. It was like gold and silver, and all the vegetation was so beautiful, but it was mingling in with the white of the fog. And I had to come paint it. So this is When the Fog Rolls In. Straight from that experience. It was I'll never forget it. Oyster Beds. I want to talk a little bit about this one. I was reading a study from out west, where they're actually planting a bunch of seagrass for keeping the oysters alive because of the pH levels in the water rising, the pH levels have been detrimental for the shells of the oysters, and it's a $9 million industry, and they planted seagrass because seagrass gives oxygen and it helps change the pH level. How cool is that? So I could paint oyster beds. So the top painting works on paper. It's called Into the Night, and it's from a trip to Puerto Rico. And I got to experience going out to the lagoon when they had the phytoplankton out, so that they illuminate at nighttime. So whenever we were kayaking and you put your oar in, they'd glow at nighttime. So when I got back, I created this kind of imaginary seagrass bed at nighttime with the beautiful dinoflagellates glowing. So that's mixed media on paper. The one below, Coastline, talks about how with global warming we have huge shifts in our coastline here on the Cape. If you've been to Truro or if you've been to the even Provincetown, you can see some of these areas where there used to be car parking areas. They're all kind of been washed away, and it's an aerial kind of perspective on looking at the water kind of rising, which is what's happening.
All right, go ahead.
So if you'd like to see some more of my work, I'm at FP3 Gallery till October 15th, and also every Sunday from 11 to 4 o'clock. Studio 224 is open here in the South End, 450 Harrison Avenue.
Will you tell us your website again and your Instagram?
My website is nedretandre.com, www.nedretandre.com, nedretandre.com, and my, you need?
The Instagram is just your name, right?
Yeah. Instagram is Nedret Andre.
Perfect. I forget. Did you already say like thanks for coming or something like that? Okay. I was like, what did you say at the beginning? All right, go ahead.
thank you for visiting. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Great.